Now, you see an example of this in the task force case. And I wonder if Pam Bondi has yet to pick up the docket of what is pending before the Supreme Court of the United States, in which the U.S. government is the defendant. Because the court came back with, we previously discussed this, the court after oral argument ordered additional supplemental briefing. So I was like, this is a great opportunity for Bondi to finally check the Supreme Court docket and not continue to defend an Obama administration policy that is directly contra everything Trump stands for. Because the Obama task force is about, let's have an administrative state, a bureaucratic branch of government, completely immune from elected officials, which it completely eviscerates the people's control over the executive branch, which is intended by how Article 2 is structured. And so this is a direct violation. This is why all principal officers, according to the Constitution, have to be approved by the two political branches, political meaning elected branches of government. And that is the President of the United States and the Senate. And if you're a principal officer, that's what has to happen. And if you're an inferior officer, you have to be subject to the complete reversal powers of the principal officer. What Obama's task force did is allow a group of unelected people, appointed by unelected people, to completely dictate healthcare policy for the entire nation. So it's an incredible power that Trump campaigned against in 2016. Yeah, all the way back. And here it is. It's finally going to get exposed as unconstitutional, this whole task force. And Pam Bondi is too busy checking her Fox News TV schedule to figure out what's on the Supreme Court docket.
Robert,
is she still defending Obama-era policy? This is an embarrassment. This is preposterous. How this is still happening.
I was trying to figure out how it was that they were still defending this Obama-era policy, and there was a web, I don't know what KFF.org is, but an analysis which said, even though President Trump has supported the ACA repeal in his first term, his administration is defending the lawsuit. On its face, it may seem unexpected, but the outcome of the case could give the administration broader latitude to shape the recommendations issued by the entities that were originally established with the goal of providing independent analysis and review. Is there any? I mean, that explanation.
What they're saying is that because the Secretary of Health and Human Services can convene the task force. That convene means he can actually appoint them and fire them, even though that's never how it's operated, directly contrary to the plain language of the law, and doesn't make sense. If they wanted him to have appointment power, they would have given him appointment power. They didn't give it to him. I guarantee you, the moment Kennedy were to exercise that power, he'll be sued and the court will enjoin him right away, saying, oh, no, this has to be independent according to congressional law. So this is a sign that here's what's happening. I even tweeted this earlier this week, and it relates to some other debates we'll get into, Maha debate, Trump foreign policy, all the rest. 90% of the lawyers working at the Justice Department are liberal Democrats who hate Trump or never Trump Republicans. And they haven't come close to fixing that problem. The only person who's taken any meaningful action has been Harmeet Dillon at the Civil Rights Division. She understood how to go in there and purge them of their bad faith actors. And she's done an excellent, exceptional job. She's also done a very good job of staying public. Bongino, I understand, wants to try to do that, but I'll be frank, he's done a poor job of it. Piss poor job of it. The same is true of Kash Patel, who has done a very poor job of his public representations and statement. And Pam Bondi's been so obsessed with press schedule, she's not doing policy. So I'll give two examples, the Robin Gritz case and the Brooke Jackson case. So in the Robin Gritz case, this is an FBI agent who was wrongfully fired by corrupt actors for harassment and gender discrimination purposes, who is one of our best law enforcement agents in the nation. We brought suit on her behalf. The same lawyers are running the case as if nothing has changed in the administration, with the same positions on evidence and rulings and settlement and all the rest. So it's like, you wouldn't know there had been any change in the administration if you were in part of that case.
Because the judicial deep state, as far as that case is concerned, hasn't been changed. And so it's the same actors who were...
the judge, but no, this is the Department of Justice lawyer working the case. That is someone that is subject to Trump's control and Bondi's control. But they have clearly been given no instruction. Not only have they not been substituted out, they've clearly been given no instructions. On this case, we want to change position.
But on that point, they haven't been removed, and they are probably still ideologically disaligned with the...
I mean, you can tell. Brooke Jackson case, same way. I mean, they just filed in the Brooke Jackson case that the U.S. government's position under Trump is identical to the U.S. government's position under Biden, even though they know that's a lie. It doesn't outright lie. They're just lying to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
And let me pause it there. These are the attorneys in the file, not the administration. And the complaint here, so that everybody understands, and I said clip it and share it, the complaint here is that the administration is not getting involved to either give directions to these TDS-afflicted attorneys who are still handling the file, or, I don't know, not fire them, replace them. They can appoint...
Well, absolutely. You have 90% of the lawyers working. I mean, Harmeet understood this problem. So she went in right away and said, we're changing policy. And if you're not on board, you can go. And they recognized it and they left. So she made clear everybody's going to be on board or you're out. And that's what should have happened everywhere. It's not. The Robin Gritz case is an example. Like, clearly they finally, because I think it was high profile enough, got involved in the Ashley Babbitt case, reversed the Biden administration policy, and have ordered a settlement in that case. Very good for Ashley Babbitt, good for Judicial Watch, good for justice in general. But they're not doing that with any degree of consistency. They haven't given new instructions to how to handle the DOJ with the Secretary of Agriculture, the Amos Miller case. It's still sitting in federal court. There's still a consent decree that's part of the order that the state is using to go after him and harass him continually by the state of Pennsylvania.
What is the pipeline to get this to them? I mean,
you have to do it. I mean, there has to be a commitment at the top to do it. So Harmeet understands it. Pam Bondi does not. It's not clear to me. I think Bongino gets it, but I don't know for sure.
Well, I think Bongino does get it, but I get the feeling that he's not the one who has the power to do it.
He has a lot of power, though. I mean, he's the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So so something should be happening there. The same is true of, now I get part of it is the Senate and the judicial branch and all the other bureaucratic obstacles. But like one obstacle that Trump has, that's a big one, that is something he can remedy, is all the personnel that are in the Justice Department, especially, since that who does all the litigation in courts, that those personnel represent the elected will of the people in the Trump policy priorities. Instead, that has not been consistently communicated. Those don't remember, Brooke Jackson, the whistleblower, exposed Pfizer was engaging in fraud in order to see the Pfizer contractually promised President Trump, the Defense Department, that they would deliver a safe, effective vaccine for the prevention of COVID-19. And by the way, not a therapeutic. It's right in the contract. We're not asking for a therapeutic. We're not asking something that will ameliorate conditions or circumstances. We're asking for a vaccine that will inoculate. That was specifically put in the contract. So the FDA's later changing of the word vaccine doesn't suffice. And yet, Bill Barr initially hid that information from President Trump in 2020 because Brooke Jackson came forward to the government in the fall of 2020, September of 2020. The government under the Biden administration came in and said, you have to dismiss this case because raising any question about the COVID vaccine is against public health policy, period, of the Biden administration. Now, this administration doesn't have that policy. That's clear by Secretary Hegseth, Defense Secretary Hegseth, saying this was always an illegal order to mandate this vaccine, that there's all kinds of issues related to that. That led to the interview you did with the
with Ivan on Friday. So good. Yeah. That was a great one.
Absolutely. And so you see what the background of all that was. So that's the official position. It's not. No questions can be raised about vaccines. So they're misrepresenting to the government. So why don't they feel consequence? Remember, the sabotage that set the whole Maryland man case afoot was you had a Biden Democratic liberal U.S. attorney misrepresenting to the court what took place, saying, we deported him. We weren't even supposed to deport. Totally false. He was ordered to deport.
Oh, my goodness. Do I feel stupid for having never actually put that together?
Yeah, that's what that was. So he's got all these saboteurs in his own government.
Some
of these saboteurs can be removed, or at least try to remove.
To flesh it out so that everybody clearly understands what they were relying on as to the administrative error for having deported Garcia. What was his name? Abrego Garcia. The administrative error that the media ran with the entire time, that everyone ran with, say, even they admitted it was a mistake, was probably coming from some TDS Biden appointed.
Oh, it was. And Stephen Miller confirmed that. He said the person was a saboteur. So it's like, how did he get the case in the first place? I mean, so when I see further evidence, I see it in my own cases, Amos Miller case, the Robin Gritz case, the Robin Gritz case, they gave millions to bogus FBI agent claims that were rightfully fired. Like Lisa and all the others. stroke, etc. Here's someone who is illegitimately fired for purely discriminatory reasons, and there's no resolution. That case should not be marching forward to trial like it currently is. It's because they haven't fixed it. The same in the Brooke Jackson case. They should have reversed their policy, allow the case to go forward, and say, or at least tell the courts honestly that the Trump administration does not have the same position as the Biden administration. And the same with the immigration cases. They should at least be monitoring the SCOTUS docket. I mean, remember, Bondi got caught defending gun control rules, and then had a week later say, "Oh, I'm going to look at this and try to fix." There was clearly no plan. It's becoming evident. Harmeet Dillon had a plan going into the Civil Rights Division. Pam Bondi had no plan going into the Justice Department beyond, wow, I'll get 3 hits on Fox News this week. I mean that appears to, and what they all have in common, which by the way relates to the sabotage of the Trump-Ukraine peace possibilities, is they're all America First Policy Institute, and people need to separate this. Stephen Miller, great. America First, legal. America First, legal. America First Policy Institute was funded by big oil money originally out of Texas. It was Rick Perry's group. That's where Brooke Rollins comes from. Comes from the same corrupt Texas political establishment, riddled with Bushites that are anti-populist. That Governor Abbott got caught trying to do a deal to help to build this like big Islamic community in the middle of Texas, and there was so much political blowback that today he had to announce, "Oh, okay, it's actually not going forward." So apparently the donations didn't last that long enough to withstand all that political scrutiny. But that's how we're in this position, is that he has done the America First Policy Institute put Brooke Rollins, that's where Brooke Rollins was, that's where Pam Bondi was, that aligned with Susie Wiles, who's a huge corporate lobbyist. There's talk now, it wouldn't surprise me, if Bondi was part of Susie Wiles' lobbying group, guess who one of their biggest clients was? Pfizer. It is a huge problem if you have as the head of the Justice Department in a case concerning massive Pfizer fraud, someone who has a direct conflict of interest. And that conflict of interest is at the chief of staff with Susie Wiles and at the Justice Department, apparently. That part hasn't been confirmed as the Bondi yet, but it wouldn't surprise me because that's what America First Policy Institute was. It was not America First at all. It was fake. It was a fake group set up to infiltrate the Trump administration and undermine the ability to deliver on populist promises. And guess who else was there? Who was the military advisor? One General Dipshit Kellogg. This is the dimwit who I really had hoped Trump brought him on just as a posturing device, as a negotiating tool. I'm still hopeful that that's the case. Maybe now it's more like prayerful that that's the case. But, Kellogg is an idiot. Kellogg is a war horde, military-industrial complex guy. That's all he's ever been his whole life. Again, that America First policy was a fake name designed to infiltrate the Trump administration, bringing in lobbyists representing the military-industrial complex, representing the pharmaceutical-industrial complex, representing the big food agricultural context. That's why Brooke Rollins has basically done almost nothing. She's done one good thing for one small farmer in South Dakota. Good, but nowhere near the scale and scope that needs to happen. Instead, initially, it took Robert Kennedy intervening for her to get off her stupid chicken vaccine logic that was going to cause egg prices to keep skyrocketing from the Biden administration. Kennedy helped on that topic, got her corrected. She fixed it. Egg prices come way down. Very critical for Trump's policies. But generally, if you find people connected to the America First Policy Institute, that's where you'll find the seditious saboteurs, those who will undermine or redirect the Trump policies away from what the American people elected him to do. And sadly, Bondi continues to fail more often than succeed in this arena. Now, hopefully we'll see more. But you have Kash Patel, who's given a softball question by Senator Kennedy, asking when Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, so his name is John Kennedy, no relation to the Kennedy family. There's a lot of Catholics in Louisiana. It's particularly Southwest Louisiana because they're old Acadians from up in Canada. They got kicked out of part of France, and then they got kicked out of part of Canada, and they're great old school people. The kind of people that you can find talking with a heavy accent, doing the what was it, Swamp Show or Swamp Gate? I love watching that show.
Swamp Men, I think.
Yeah, so something like that. But they go out and catch gators, real live gators.
Yeah,
I know one thing. If I'm coming down, next time I see you, I'm definitely not taking I'm not going on the hike, going on any bike ride. You got like snakes out there, gators out there.
I need to go gator hunting. It's Australia of continental North America.
Yeah.
But I got to go gator hunting. No, hold on. Let me just kick myself in the butt again for not appreciating that when they said it was an administrative error, and the counter argument to that was you can deport them wherever you want after the president says so. And so,
And the actual order, by the way, only referenced a different country than El Salvador.
yeah, well, that was what I thought was the administrative error, that because of his it was the risk to go back to El Salvador because he was a gang member and the rival gangs wanted to get him.
But they actually identified a different country because his family had moved. I think it was Guatemala. The actual order doesn't even say he can't go to El Salvador.
Okay.
So they misrepresented at multiple levels. So you got all these saboteurs, which is what happened throughout Trump's first term. Massive sabotage everywhere. And the at least try to manage it at some level by getting rid of these persons. And there's all kinds of creative ways to do it. I'll give another example. As people raised this week, it was fascinating that some people finally discovered something we've been talking about now for years, which is the corruption of the Southern District of New York. And in particular, one of the most corrupt, outspoken people there, or participants there, is James Comey's daughter, who magically keeps showing up on consequential political cases. And she was on the Epstein case. And people are discovering, oh, look, she's also now on the P. Diddy case. And some people are like, how is she still U.S. attorney? Because they've made no efforts to systematically correct any of this. Only Dylan has done anything. The rest have done nothing that I can tell. Now, I think Bongino is trying to fix aspects of the FBI, but here was a problem of Bongino and Kash Patel from the get-go. They were both naive idealists. And now there's two problems. One, Patel overpromised when he was in his out of power. So he would often be very aggressive in his language and rhetoric about how people should go to jail, this should happen. So it led to expectations. And now those expectations are not being met. People are confused and frustrated, et cetera. I've known Kash for a while. He was sort of popularized by Amanda Milius's film Plot Against the President. I think he's a great guy. I think he's very smart, very talented, very skilled, very gifted, right principles, all of that. However, he's an institutionalist at heart. And he believed in the U.S. Attorney's Office. He believed in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He thought these were just anomalies of a small group of people, not the entire frigging agency, which is what it is.
And let's flesh that out as well, because everybody says, look, the field agents are good. You know, at the lower levels, they're all good and they want to do their jobs. It's a few select higher ups that pollute, taint the entire system. The reality might be that it might be the field agents or the lower levels who themselves might suffer from TDS in a large degree. If it's
they hate Trump. I guarantee they hate Trump. I'll give you an example. Probably at least half of the members of the House and the Senate, when they went in and voted against Trump. But you now take that number about to 85, 90, 95%. How do we know? Well, the ones that live in D.C., we know how they voted because they voted 97% against Trump. So, this is the problem, is you have a hostile capital, a hostile power structure, but at least some of it can be ameliorated by having the right people give you the right information, the right decisions, et cetera. And that's not what's happened. For example, when Kennedy asked, what happened to Epstein, when am I going to get the docs? And so, oh, don't worry, we're kind of reviewing it. Okay, I get it. Here's what I don't understand. You don't have to fail to disclose anything while waiting to disclose everything. Why not have rolling disclosures as you go forward? And they can't answer that question.
Well, look, this is the argument. They're coming out now and saying we're reviewing thousands of videos of CSAM, child sexual abuse material.
Almost all the videos you can't disclose anyway. So that makes no sense. Because they involve victims, and the victims have privacy rights. So that is a complete red herring. That is a red herring. Here's the probable reality. The Epstein docs probably have some Republican donors on that list. So that's probably a little bit of it. But my guess is the big part of it is that it involves U.S. and foreign intelligence agencies. So those governments, Israel does not want to be exposed being neck deep with Epstein. It's undisputed there were ties between Mossad and Israeli government officials and Epstein. There's no dispute about that. They don't want that to go public. They don't want is what I suspect. I suspect the people that there's two groups. There's the people that are deeply connected on the Democratic side in the bowels of the FBI who are running circles around Bongino, around Patel, around Bondi. That's half of the equation. The other half, I increasingly suspect. When I saw this excuse being the excuse, I was like, that makes no sense. There's no scenario in which you're going to be disclosing any of those videos to the world.
It's not just that. In my view, there's no scenario in which they didn't already know that those videos have existed for a decade plus. And
Right.
it's inconceivable that they would then say, well, now we've got to look through the videos
And
and
what they're
what.
saying, no one reviewed him before. How did you bring the prosecution? How are you planning on presenting the evidence?
So, but let me steel man another flip side to this. If there are people in those videos who are not Jeffrey Epstein and they might be bringing prosecutions, would that tie their hands in terms of what they're able to
Oh, sure, but
disclose?
they're again, that's easy. Law enforcement exception, you don't disclose. That's no reason not to disclose the things you can disclose. That's what makes no sense whatsoever. So this is a cover story. It smells like a cover story by people, and my guess is it's Israel. Is my guess. Maybe MI6, maybe MI6, and maybe the UK. But why do I say that? Well, you go all the way back. Elaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell. Maxwell was also part of this honey trap operation. He was connected to the KGB, the MI6, Mossad, CIA, everybody. If you were an intelligence agency anywhere in the world, he was your guy at multiple levels. So when Ghislaine Maxwell showed up and connected to Epstein, I was like, well, now you know exactly what the story is. That basically Epstein got himself rich in power and got to explore his eugenics ideas and got to explore his personal predilections and perversions, as long as he was creating a massive blackmail operation, honeypot operation, entrapment and extortion operation for a deep state apparatus. And a key part of that, I mean, as Alan Dershowitz admitted, he was introduced to Epstein by who? Now, this will get all the anti-Jew people going crazy. But so take that, throw that stuff out of it. It's just a government protecting the government. But by Lady Rothschild, who the Rothschild family had deep involvement in the foundation of Israel. A large reason was their lobbying of the UK and other places why Israel exists. So, and I'm not one of those people that's obsessed to do all the rest.
Well, let me just
you can be critical of George Soros without being anti-Jewish, because nobody was more anti-Jewish than George Soros. That's the people whose property he helped take when he was working with the Nazis during World War II. But just like you can be critical of the famous banking family, the Rothschild. By the way, their wine, they have great taste. Lafite Rothschild, still the best wine. So you can always draw boundaries. But everything about this feels like a cover-up. It's like why they never really researched and reviewed, and to this day have not disclosed the Seth Rich files. What I was told by I'd say reasonably reliable. It's not like Laura. If it's Laura Loomer, I'd have to say is, even though she's utterly unreliable, maybe she's right this time. This source was more in between the two categories, but said that the people that helped get the files to Assange, the emails that disclosed what happened to DNC,
Seth Rich,
that Seth Rich and the intermediary was the Israeli government. That's what I was told, is that the Israel wanted Trump at that time to win. And even though Hillary had been very close with Israel, so I don't know whether that's the case or not, but it's striking to me that we're getting weird delays on the Epstein docs. We're getting weird delays on the Seth Rich docs that are raising real as to who is pulling the strings inside. Or it could just be that the saboteurs are still in charge of those specific decisions, because so many people at the Justice Department are Trump haters. And that's who Pam Bondi has failed to purge. And I don't know whether part of it is like the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino idealistic version. And I have great respect for both men, so I hope nobody misinterprets that. And I'm not being hypercritical. I'm pointing out that if you think most of the FBI agents are good and there were just a few bad actors at the top, or that most of the prosecutors at the Justice Department are good, like Sessions did, and just a few bad actors at the top, then you don't understand the sabotage goes top to bottom. And some of the worst saboteurs are at the bottom because they're making the day-to-day decisions that actually implement policy. And that is a continuous cause for concern. Now, a place where it's been misplaced is the Maha debate.
Well, let me answer the question as to Dapper Dave. What I found funny is that I knew what Barnes was saying was going to set the chat on fire on Rumble. And I went to check the chat, and yes, the chat is on fire on Rumble.
Yeah.
And it's
because people will obsess. The people that want to blame Jews for everything will obsess over this. And I always said there's a difference between idiotic Candace Owens level Stalin's a secret Jew and the pointing out that Israel's not always our ally.
No,
pointing out that the Rothschilds can have done a lot of bad stuff over their history. I mean, where did Macron come from? The Rothschild Bank in France. I mean, this little Napoleon wannabe. So the Rothschild family has not been a positive influence on world history. Just hasn't. Sorry. But
And
like when Dershowitz told me that, I was like, oh, now I know Epstein how deep they clearly what were they trying to do? Right? Someone Dershowitz greatly respects, Lady Rothschild, a very deeply strong Israeli advocate. I would argue the most eloquent pro-Israel advocate on almost any policy is Dershowitz. I've found him to be constantly persuasive and often change my mind on things than where they were. But when he disclosed, I think it was at our discussion, was the first time I'd ever heard that the reason why he trusted and thought Epstein was okay was Lady Rothschild introduced him. And I was like, buddy, that should have been your first warning sign. What they were trying to do is get blackmail material on Dershowitz because that's what he was doing on everybody. His goal, now, you're going to have a lot of people on the Epstein list that have no ties to Epstein. Epstein gave free flights to all kinds of people. Epstein was always trying to entrap. Come to my dinner. Hey, I'll do this for you. I'll do that for you. He tried to infiltrate Trump world. He was at Mar-a-Lago. Trump just smelled a rat and kicked him out. The other people, like Robert Kennedy, I think went on a plane with him once, going to Colorado. He's like, guy's a weird guy. I don't want to deal with him in the future. But so there's all going to be all kinds of innocent people that they unsuccessfully tried to entrap and ensnare. But it's the longer they don't disclose the Epstein docs, the greater the criticism and skepticism will be of the Trump base of Pam Bondi.
what was
So,
the
she's got an easy way to fix it. But another thing she's got to do is she's got to clean house at the Justice Department and have the right people assign cases. And for the love of God, at least figure out what's on the Supreme Court docket and quit taking anti-Trump positions before the Supreme Court.
Barnes, you're a Zionist. I wanted to bring that one up. I'm going to get to the chats in a second. I wanted to say one more thing. The CIA documents. There was the one that was the document that showed Israel's involvement, that they were trying to redact Israel from the document. I forget which one it was. And the only question was not that it showed that Israel was involved in the assassination of JFK, but that there was consideration to redact Israel's name from the documents, which was the embarrassing part. I forget exactly which document it was. I should probably refresh my memory.
Israel had nothing to do with either one.
No, I know, but there was one document that they had redacted Israel as a country, or they wanted to, or they found out that they had in a prior document.
Long-standing fan. Yeah. What it was is there was a protocol to redact anything that involved foreign governments. Period. That was the protocol, and so that's why stuff concerning Mexico wasn't. And the CIA used it to say anything we did, you need to hide because that will embarrass a foreign government.
Well, what I love is anybody who thinks that the government of Israel would be beyond what other governments of the world do is an idiot. And so whether or not it's Israel or Israel and England or Israel, England, Australia or England, Israel, Australia
or high-ranking U.S. people,
that are involved in blackmail.
To me, it struck that one of the, it's especially the connection with the rich stuff, given what I'd heard. I was just like, why are we not, we got full disclosure of the Kennedy assassination documents, Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, and full disclosure of the Martin Luther King assassination, or a lot of the disclosure, and they're doing it on a rolling basis. So maybe they should have put Gabbard in charge of the Epstein doc disclosure, because then we would already have it, because she doesn't care where things fall out. It's an ongoing concern. Now, where people are misplacing that concern because they listen to people like Laura Loomer, who's utterly unreliable, utterly untrustworthy, nothing she says you can take at face value at all, is the Maha debate. Now, part of that is a legitimate concern amongst a certain group of people within the Make America Healthy Again movement. And some of it is illegitimate concern fueled by misrepresentations by bad faith actors within that space.